Okay, let's talk about Iran. Now, of course, a lot has happened over the last few weeks, and let's try to make some sense out of all of it. Now, of course, we know that a lot of protesting was going on. There was also some rioting and a lot of violence. Now, according to Western mainstream media, it started out as protests against the high inflation rate in the country, but then it quickly turned into protests against the authorities. Now, the authorities couldn't handle it and started killing a lot of people. Now, of course, we can always fully trust Western mainstream media to be 100% accurate and to always be completely unbiased. But just for fun's sake, let's take a look at the situation from a slightly different angle. Now, I've seen several interviews with Professor Syed Mohammad Morandi about the situation in Iran. Now, Professor Morandi is a very prominent Iranian voice who is usually pretty good at telling us about what is going on with Iran from the point of view of both the authorities as well as the people of Iran. Now, what he is basically saying is that all of this is part of a larger evil plan by Western governments and Western intelligence agencies. They want to bring down the Iranian government and replace it with a Western puppet regime. So according to him, the West manipulated the Iranian rial, the Iranian currency. As a result, it dropped in value, which by definition, of course, we call inflation. Now, because of that, some business owners started to protest, but these were initially relatively small, peaceful protests. But on the second day, these protests were infiltrated by outside forces. These outside forces were basically a combination of different groups, basically directed by Western intelligence agencies like the CIA and Mossad, for example. Now, these groups of people were extremely violent, so they started rioting, they destroyed buildings, mosques, hospitals, and they started killing people, both people from law enforcement as well as protesters, and all of this to create chaos and to destabilize the country. Now, of course, the Iranian police had to intervene, and inevitably it got a little bit ugly. But the way Western mainstream media have been reporting on this was as if the Iranian authorities started randomly killing innocent protesters, which, according to Professor Morandi, was not the case. In fact, and this is something that, according to Professor Morandi, Western mainstream media deliberately failed to report on, after all the violence, it all turned into massive protests, not against, but in support of the Iranian government and the Iranian constitution, and against the rioters. But because Western media failed to report on this, the narrative of the overwhelming majority of people in Iran wanting to get rid of the sitting government still lives on, when, according to Professor Morandi, that's simply not true. But still, we heard Donald Trump say to the Iranian people, "We are coming to save you," meaning, we are going to throw bombs on your country. And that is exactly what this has been all about. It was all an attempt to destabilize the country and to fabricate justification for US forces to attack Iran. Now, of course, I completely understand that many people in the West would automatically discard this as pure Iranian propaganda. Well, maybe, but let's not be too quick about that. Let's keep an open mind, take a closer look and see if any of this has any merit. Now, first of all, Professor Morandi claims that the West has manipulated the Iranian rial and that this caused its value to plummet. Now, it seems like many Western mainstream media outlets are implying that the current economic problems in Iran have been caused by mismanagement and corruption within the Iranian government. That's the narrative that they've been spreading. Well, let's take a look at this article. It says, Iran's currency falls to a new low as nuclear sanctions squeeze its ailing economy. It also says, after Trump returned to the White House for a second term in January, he restarted his so-called maximum pressure campaign, targeting Tehran with sanctions. He again went after firms trading Iranian crude oil, including those selling at a discount in China. In late September, the United Nations reimposed nuclear sanctions on Iran via what diplomats refer to as its snapback mechanism. Those sanctions again freeze Iranian assets abroad, halt arms deals with Tehran, and penalize any development of Iran's ballistic missile program, among other measures. measures. So now, was there mismanagement going on? Was there corruption within the Iranian government? Who knows? But it seems extremely obvious that the main cause for the current economic problems in Iran is these Western sanctions. So when Professor Morandi says that the West has manipulated the Iranian rial, it seems pretty plausible, doesn't it? Now, and then Professor Morandi claimed that Western governments and Western intelligence agencies organized the infiltration of the protest by these extremely violent groups who terrorized the streets of Tehran and many other cities in Iran. Now, there seems to be quite a few indications that that might not be such a far-fetched, baseless claim. For example, let's take a look at this article from Al Jazeera. It says, in Israel, far-right heritage minister Amachai Eliyahu told Army Radio last week, when we attacked in Iran during Rising Lion, we were on its soil and knew how to lay the groundwork for a strike. I can assure you that we have some of our people operating there right now, stopping short of claiming that Israeli agents were seeking regime change. And Israel's pro-Netanyahu Channel 14 reported on Tuesday that foreign agents were behind the arming of protesters in Iran, leading to the deaths of members of the security forces. And also, writing on social media earlier this month, former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who is also a former director of the CIA, did acknowledge the presence of Israeli agents operating on the ground in Iran, wishing Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. I mean, it couldn't be much clearer, could it? Now, these are just a few examples, but there are many, many more indications that Western intelligence agencies might be involved in all of this. Now, in a recent interview, Professor Jeffrey Sachs basically said that what we've been seeing in Iran is a textbook example of the early phases of a regime change attempt. According to him, we've seen this scenario play out many times before. So first of all, the targeted country is being bombarded with misinformation and Western propaganda. And by the way, what many people might not be aware of is that there are countless Western mainstream media outlets based in the West that specifically target Iran. Just to give you a few examples, so we have BBC Persian, we have Iran International, we have Radio Farda, we have Voice of America Persian, we have Manoto TV, we have Radio Zamaneh, we have Deutsche Welle Persian, we have France 24 Persian, we have Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty Persian, we have Channel 4 Persian, and I could go on and on. Now again, the targeted country, in this case Iran, is bombarded with Western propaganda, then infiltration follows, so outside forces cause a lot of chaos and try to destabilize the country. Now, if that in and of itself doesn't cause such an uproar that the people themselves will get rid of the sitting government, then what might follow is Western military intervention. And according to Professor Morandi as well as Professor Jeffrey Sachs, that is exactly the process that we've been witnessing in Iran. But is that a correct assessment? What do you believe? Is it A? So the people of Iran are so fed up with their government that's been very repressive that they've organized massive anti-government protests. Now, the government couldn't handle it and came down very hard and very violently on innocent protesters, killing thousands of people. Now, luckily, their savior, Donald Trump, is very concerned for the Iranian people. I mean, he threw bombs on Iran just a few months ago, but now all of a sudden he's very concerned for the Iranian people and he wants to come save them. Or B, the Israeli government hates Iran. They've been wanting to get rid of the Iranian government for decades now. Now, of course, the US government has been enslaved by Israel. They will do whatever Israel tells them to do. And so here we are in the middle of a regime change attempt. Or C, the government of Israel and the government of the United States at their core are basically one and the same, acting like two different nations. Now, they both make up the global West, together with their European allies, of course. Now, the global West is currently desperately fighting against multipolarism. Now, in that specific geopolitical game, Iran is a pretty important pro-multipolarist pawn. And that's the reason why the West so desperately wants to get rid of the sitting government in Iran and replace it with a Western puppet regime. So what we've been witnessing is the West attempting to do exactly that in Iran. Or D, let me know what you think.